Yo, guys, what's good? Welcome back to another video. Now, I wanted to make this one specifically on variable value pricing, as you guys saw the title. What it is adjusting your service price per job based on perceived value, timing, client situation, client wealth, all sorts of things like this. And now I've used variable value pricing for the last 3 years. And as you guys can see, some of my clients, I took 4 random clients from my Venmo. And as you can see, they've paid me almost a different price every single time. Now, without systems, this wouldn't be possible, right? Because all of these different prices have came from the same client. And some of these clients we've done in 2024. 2024 again, and 2023 even. Here's some in 2024. So as you guys can see, we've been doing a lot of clients. And it definitely works. And a lot of people aren't using this. And it's the reason they aren't making, an extra 10, 15, even $20,000 a month using VVP. Now, why does this actually work, right? It's actually super simple. Now, number one is clients rarely compare every invoice. I'm sure you know this if you run a business. They usually compare the overall experience, right? Most people don't care what your product is, what your service is. They care what it does for them and how it solves their problems. Number two, keeps the customers engaged, right? Sometimes higher, sometimes cheaper prices. And when you do this, it adds a bit of curiosity. Like, why are they charging me a different price? But if you don't do it with confidence, it doesn't work, right? So confidence is a big factor and plays a big role into this. And number three is it increases lifetime value without contracts. I have never used a contract, and I don't think I ever will, simply because contracts aren't flexible, right? Sometimes the schedules, cross paths and they don't work. Sometimes a client wants to cancel, but this, you can adjust for any conditions, whether the market's more expensive, whether you're, in a holiday season and they want to pay more. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, there's a ton of different things that go into it. And then how you actually execute this, the framework is super simple. Step number one is going to be to start with the baseline price, right? Let's say you were out knocking doors. You sold someone for a fair $180 for some exterior window cleaning, whatever service you're in. This could go for online services as well. It doesn't really matter. And once you find a baseline, fair price, step number two is going to be to evaluate the situation. Does this client have money? Does this client seem like they would come back? If they aren't seeming like they're going to come back, you definitely didn't provide that good of a service, or they just don't have very much money. And, you got to check the complexity, the urgency, and like I said, the client profile. You need to do an overall evaluation on your clients. And number three is going to be to adjust up and down. For example, right, 150 for the next job, 210 for the following job, and then back to 180. All these things work every single time if you use them properly. Step number four is to be communicating confidently. Like I said, you can't do this if you don't have utter confidence and you don't know exactly what you're doing. Never explain small shifts unless asked, right? Never tell them why it's a little bit cheaper. And if you have to use some of the methods we have inside Six Figure Systems, or else it won't work. And then the benefits of this: there is no need for rigid contracts. It's easier to upsell because prices aren't locked, and customers feel the variety, right? Less chance of price fatigue. And it keeps the cash flow healthier and more adaptable. Now, with that being said, there's a bunch more benefits that we can get into in a little bit later. But some of the pitfalls you need to avoid, because these happen, I've seen it happen time and time again. A lot of service business owner guys that I know, in my area, who try and start window cleaning or gutter cleaning, an online service company, people I know, they fall into this void that it never works, simply because they haven't adapted to what's going on in the market, right? And the number one mistake they make is they make every change feel so random. But what you need to do is you need to not make changes feel random or unfair. Because if you do that, the adjustments, it doesn't sit well with the clients, right? Keep the adjustments very subtle, avoid drastic swings that cause distrust, and always tie the shifts to value, right? Quality, timing, and relationship. Now, here's exactly how you can actually price your jobs or your services. For example, job number one, like I said, 180 is a fair baseline price. Job number two might be 2-3 months down the road, $210 for a holiday rush, right? You have a few days where it's a holiday, people want their windows cleaned, they've got company coming over. Number three, it's $150. It's a slower week, there's not a lot of things going on, and you just need to get the job in. And you do this for loyalty, right? You give them a nice price drop, you do this, they're like, all right, this guy's gonna give me good prices. And then number four, right, you return, maybe it's a different time of year, you charge them $200, right? And as you guys can see, I've been using this. I want you to take a look at this. Every single one of my clients, 2024, we did $110. The next job, $120. The next job, $129. The next job, $135, $140, and so on. And I've done this for each and every one of my clients. Take a look at this. $555, that was inside and out. This is $250. Exteriors, $210. $260, $275, right? Every single job is a different price. And I don't do this on accident, right? We do this with a very simple strategy behind it, right? $275. Occasionally, you have to match the price. $210, $275. That's more of a consistent $275. This one, $125, $250, $250, $225, 300. And then back in 2023, 350, he paid in cash most of 2024. Guys, look at this, from one door that I knocked on, right? With a simple strategy, an easy pitch, and closing them, efficiently and providing the best value possible. We've been able to literally do these homes, 5, 6, 7+ times. Some of my clients we've done over 10 times. And that's multiple thousands of dollars in revenue generated from one door. But if you don't have the systems, because I know most companies are doing one-time cleans, and it's the reason they never ever make enough money, right? They're usually stuck at $2 to $3 to maybe even $4,000 or $5,000 a month doing one-time cleans, and it's very possible to do that. But if you want to build a reoccurring business where you get monthly people or every other month, it doesn't really matter, bringing you consistent revenue, you have to find the system that works for you. And inside Six Figure Systems, we teach exactly how you can do this for your business. We give you a free business audit, see exactly what the bottleneck is, right? Whether you're doing one-time cleans, whether variable value pricing isn't even working for you, we will figure out exactly what you need. We will tailor it specifically to you and make sure your business is generating, 10, 20, even $30,000 plus per month through simple systems.